Welcome to the Speak Pact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Roze, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the Speak Pact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Roze.
I am with Roy Vella today. He is going to share some deep insights into what took him from deep tech to the big stages. So, Roy, welcome to this show today.
Thanks, Antoniette. How are you?
I am well, and I'm so excited. I'm well now.
Yeah.
Whenever whoever's listening to this, we had some massive storms in Texas, which kind of was a huge upheaval yesterday and this morning, but all is well, hopefully, from here on out. Let me know. So, have you always been drawn to tech, and what kind of brought you there?
Yeah, I'm a science geek. I've always been a science deep tech geek. My wife likes to joke around that I'm an inch deep but a mile wide in science. I could talk to any scientist pretty solidly for 15, 20 minutes, but then I'll hit a cliff where I'm like, okay, that's everything I know about what you're doing. And yeah, so been a tech geek from the early days, coding in BASIC when on my Commodore 64 and this kind of stuff. So yeah, so love science and technology and always have.
Well, I know you've done high-end tech, the merchant services for PayPal, some other very well-established, well-known companies, which I'm sure there's a bunch of competition for. So you must know a little bit more than 15 minutes worth of tech, at least.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say the secret sauce is pretty simple. It's curiosity, right? I'm sort of insatiably curious. I think that there's something to learn from everyone I interact with. I take meetings from people way junior than me to way senior than me to different geography. I don't, because I haven't lived your life. At the end of the day, everyone has a different experience. And so there's something to learn from everyone. I have many calls where we hit the end of the call and they go, I don't know anything about you. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, I'm a bit of an inquisitor. Like, if you'll keep answering questions, I'll keep asking them because I am eager to learn and hear what you've done and how you did that and why did you do this and how did that happen? And I probably should be an interviewer because I just can do that infinitely. It's because it's fascinating. And sometimes it goes personal about life decisions and sometimes it's professional about how deals happened or whatever. But yeah, I think curiosity is kind of the root of all exploration and learning and knowledge.
I was going to go that direction. If you're genuinely curious, and you and I have met before, I know how personable you are and how you actually do seem interested, right? In people other than yourself. You would make a great host. So if I ever have to take a day off or so, I might be hitting you up.
Sure. I'll tag in. Yeah, no problem.
So tech to the stage, kind of give me that journey. What brought you that direction?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people often that my for all my advanced degrees and fancy diplomas, the best education I probably got was in improv.
Wow.
Yeah. Improv training, I would say it's almost essential to my life. We are storytelling and digesting creatures. We've been doing that for hundreds of thousands of years. And we used to all practice it. We'd get around the fire and everyone was both a sender and receiver. Everyone would tell stories and everyone would receive stories. And it was a constant practice. Then radio happened, then television happened and the internet and the mass of people became receivers instead of senders, right? I mean, the practice of storytelling, I think, is essential to almost all commercial interactions, right? And so I did straight theater first, in high school and college, but then I took improv post-college. And then I did improv at Stanford and then post-Stanford in San Francisco. And it's addicting. And the reason I bring it up is that we all know it intuitively. So status. So a high status character stands very still and speaks quite slowly and is comfortable with silence. A low status character is the opposite. They're on the move. They're jiggling. They're ooh, ah, ooh, they use all the. There's a whole bunch of things in improv that you learn about storytelling, about the arc of a story, about characters, about body language, about presence that apply to improv, but frankly apply to life. And so I've always loved being up on stage, and then that got applied to commercial life. Like when I started my first startup, pitching the business is storytelling. You're telling a good story. At PayPal, when we were starting merchant services, we were on stages, telling our story, and I love it. I love it. And because I had practiced it, I was pretty good at it.
Well, I love this tip because we either feel funny or we don't feel fun. Like we feel like we're naturally fun and funny, or we're naturally not fun and funny. And I think there is a lot to be said for, you're really kind of putting some light bulbs off in my own head that maybe that would be a fun journey to go down. I have always felt like the geek, right? I'm a little bit along your lines, right? Research, give me it all, right? I want the deep details that nobody else really. Most other people, they want, just the information, not all the deep details. I've always been more on the intense side. And my sister could just walk in a room and she's already fun. Like she doesn't even have to answer. She doesn't even have to open her mouth. And she is just naturally fun and funny. Right. Sure. And so I think we tend to think that's either going to be natural or not. But what you're saying is it could actually be learned. Where would you go? Like if today you were going to tell an emerging speaker, take some improv classes, where would you tell them to go?
Yeah. I mean, the reality in today's world is that there's improv classes everywhere, right? They are, your local community college is offering improv classes, but actually a lot of the groups, so, Bay Area Theater Sports in the Bay Area is a professional improv company, but they give classes, right? Second City in Chicago, where I also went, it's a professional organization, but they give classes, right? Like New York, you name it. If you're in near any metropolitan area, there will be improv classes available. And frankly, nowadays you can probably, I think it would be hard to do it remotely, but you could probably find things on YouTube and elsewhere, right? Around improv. But fundamentally, it's about storytelling. It's and the fundamentals of how we tell and receive stories and body language and consistency. An improv audience is very forgiving, but as long as you're internally consistent, right? So internal consistency is a good thing. Like your story has to hold together. When I'll give you a quick example, like when you're on stage in improv and you create a space. So now I'm washing my hands at a sink, or over there is a door that I just came through that now everyone sees. If another character, or if I say someone else creates an environment that I then break by walking through a door without opening it, the audience literally flinches. They go, whoa, like you just walked through, like that accident, you have to then justify. Like the sink, your hands at a sink and I walk through it, I have to say, God damn it, why did we put this sink on wheels? All of a sudden now it's good, right? Like now it's good. Now they're like, the sink's on wheels. As long as you, and that's the same with any story, as long as there's internal consistency and you're staying true to the environment that you've created. So if I'm pitching a startup, I just need internal consistency throughout and people are comfortable. If I break something, if I say, and I'm going to take 100% of the market, they go, hold on a second. Like, that's kind of thing. Anyway, my point is that there are tools to improv that are readily available. There are great books. Impro is a great book without the V by Keith Johnstone. It's one of the originating books of the style. But again, I think it needs practice. Like I would really recommend, and by the way, it's not essential. Tons of public speakers have never done improv.
But it really is. You're exactly right. That internal consistency, that ability to kind of make, because something will always go wrong, right? To make light of that and find a funny way to keep people with you, because you never want your audience to feel sorry for you. Like that's a killer. So if you have just that muscle already flexed, then you're going to be more likely to be able to to pivot to funny. I do know of one, and he's amazing. His name is Jace Souter, and he does Be Funny, Make Money. He does a retreat. I had actually signed up for his retreat. I believe they're in Idaho, but I actually signed up. Something happened and I wasn't able to go. But I remember thinking, I'm just going to be so out of my element going there. So I probably could have fought harder to go. But I think there is kind of a hiccup in some of we speakers who maybe don't necessarily see the bigger value in it. And you've inspired me to re-sign up for that, because I think it really
And by the
is
way,
important.
Be Funny, at the end of the day, funny is about truth. So the reason we laugh at stand-up comics and the reason we find things funny is that there's a truthful insight, a nugget that has been spun around to look differently, and then that's amusing, right? Is when someone spots truth and highlights it and takes a lesson from it that you didn't expect, right? That messes with your expectations a bit, but at the end of the day, like, if it's not, I mean, it's striking when you think about it. If you look at a stand-up comic, they are speaking truth. They are truth sayers. That's what they do. And they shine different lights on that truth, right?
Yes.
That make it entertaining.
Yes. I love that you said that, because we tend to tell on ourselves on stage. We get on stage and we tell on ourselves. If you do it right, that's great, right? If you do it where you're nervous, you're rocking back and forth, which is a self-soothing kind of thing that makes everybody nervous, or you're just overtly awkward. You're telling on yourself that you're thinking more about yourself in that moment than you are the audience. So why not own up and somehow make light of the truth that maybe you're feeling a little out of your element or whatever, but do it in a way where it comforts the audience and gets them with you rather than makes them nervous for you.
And the comfort of silence, right? Like the power, like one of the most powerful things you can do on stage is silence. And there's nothing that grabs attention more than a speaker who's being quiet, who's made a statement and is now waiting and letting you digest it, right? Like that's, but waiting in comfort, just standing there and letting you think about it. Not like looking around and, not filling space. And we have these phrases on purpose, like filling space is trying to alleviate discomfort by doing things that really aren't adding value. But if you make a statement and then you're quiet, people go, oh, what did he just say? I have to replay that in my head, this kind of thing.
Yes.
That's very high status. Quiet.
Yeah.
Commanding attention and being quiet is super high status. People are like, oh, and again, you're playing on intuitive things. I'm not saying that anyone is sitting in their seat and going, wow, that person's high status. No, but the feeling is there, right? It makes a huge difference.
Oh, and the power of silence and not just filling up the space. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think when we're nervous, we get quiet less, right? Or when we're feeling a lack of confidence, maybe we will speak more to overcompensate, and people read that. Can you explain what you mean? Because I know it, and
Sure.
I think my video is frozen, but we're going to keep going. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you, but your video.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to let you explain this. I'm going to pop out and pop back in, but can you explain to the audience a little bit more about high status versus low status?
Sure. Yeah. And you're going to pop out. Okay. So high status is, well, at the end of the day, we're tribal creatures, and we all have different roles that we play in. Oh, she's coming back. Antoniette, there you go. Okay, so I was just saying, it's about tribes. We are tribal creatures. High status creatures demonstrate status by doing. And by the way, we're just fancy monkeys. This applies to chimps and bonobos as well. Like high status doesn't move very fast, takes deliberate action. So moves from place to place is fine with silence, making a statement and being quiet, or having someone else speak and being quiet. It is about cadence, matters a lot. So a high status character will speak quite slowly, no ums, no ahs, no hahs, and won't move their head very much. So a high status character walks, speaks. Low status is the exact opposite of all of that. Walking and speaking at the same time, moving your head around a lot, thinking about, I'm not really sure, like touching your face, like, there's a lot of motion in low status. And there's a lot of filling space in low status, and discomfort with silence, and discomfort with being anywhere for too long. So if you're playing a low stat, if I come out on stage and I'm playing a teenager versus an adult, the teenager better be on the move, and the adult probably anchors their feet, right? And then relative to each other, if it's a group of teenagers, the leader will demonstrate high status compared to the rest, right? Like, so, and by the way, so everything about this is in relation. It's all about in relation to. And by the way, your audience is a player in the game, right? So they are participating in the status conversation. You get status from how the audience perceives you.
So you can actually pick the leaders, kind of the more high status people out of the audience as a speaker, if you're up there and you can spot it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. High status, as a public speaker, for instance, I never throw away a line. I'm talking to individuals. I'm looking at people in the audience almost one at a time. The most frustrating thing is when you really can't see the audience at all. You got to just make believe that you're making eye contact.
Yes.
But often you can make eye contact. You're talking to that guy. Now you're talking to that woman. Now you're talking to this guy. Like your statements are direct. And by the way, when you do that, everyone thinks you're talking to them.
This is amazing. You're bringing up such important concepts that I think we just think we need to get our talk down, right? Get our talk right. But it is about body language, about connecting to those.
Well, especially because they're going to remember how you made them feel. Everyone knows this, right? They're going to remember how you made them feel. You might give them 2 or 3 things that they go, I'm going to repeat that. But it's more about the emotional transference than it is the content, and the rest of the content they'll get from your slides later, or they'll look it up. That's not the point for most of the time. Most of the time you want them to leave the room going, wow, that was whoa, and want to tell people about it and want to hear it again.
Did you always enjoy being in front of people, or is that something you had? Because you said you were in theater. Did you go to Stanford?
For grad school.
So yeah. You were, I don't know if that's where you're in theater. And then of course you did the improv training. Did you do that to make yourself more comfortable in front of people because you were uncomfortable, or was it something you always gravitated towards?
Yeah, I would say I reached a point in high school where this is getting personal, but I had moved from Brooklyn, New York into suburban New Jersey. And in the transition, kind of clammed up, went into my own shell, and wasn't very participative. I was the kid in the background. And then I hit junior year. And I can't believe I'm telling this story, but
tell it.
Remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I saw Fast Times at Ridgemont High and was like, oh my God, they're kids. That's me. That's my age. Like, these are kids who are my age. And all of a sudden I had this like epiphany, and I'll never forget it, where I was like, oh my God, like I'm missing out. And if someone said, do you want to, it didn't matter what they said next. I said, yes. I signed up for everything. I joined sports. I was in theater. I joined the choir, the band, you name it. I had kids in my third year, at the end of my third year of high school and beginning of my senior year of high school, saying, where did you transfer from? I'm like, I've been here for 2 years. Like, I just appeared. And that literally was a pivotal, it's a ridiculous thing to change your life, but that changed my life. Like, from then on, I became yes and, which, by the way, is a fundamental tenet of improv. that you never say yes, but. Yes, but negates the yes. Yes, and builds on the yes, right?
Go into that a little bit more, because I've heard people allude to this. I'm not fully sure I connect with what you're saying.
So again, it's about storytelling and your audience. If you say something on stage and I say, yes, but, I just negated whatever you created, right? But if I take what you said and say, yes, and now I'm building. So the audience wants you to build. They want the story to build. They want momentum to build. They want engagement to build. People like building. Tearing down is just not as fulfilling, right? So yes, and is a mindset about continuous building that even if I don't particularly disagree with if I don't particularly agree, if I disagree with what you said, I can still say yes, and turn it more towards what I want, not negating what you said, but saying we could do that, and we can do this, right? This is and it's a part of storytelling. So people like stories that build over time.
And what are stories? Stories are all about connecting. So if you say something, gosh, if the world could get this, right? If you say something and I don't agree for whatever reason, instead of saying, but, right? I'm like, I see where you're coming from, and this is where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. Right? If we could just get that. And I think in a speaker audience frame of mind, right? Sure. You're wanting to connect with them. So you don't give them a bunch of, you could do this, but I would do this. You could do this, and there might even be a better way. Let me share that with you. Oh, exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
I think I got it.
So was I comfortable on stage? No, but I also decided that if you resort to comfort, you're never going to learn anything. So discomfort is the source of all knowledge and learning and curiosity, and like being comfortable is not the objective. The objective for me is growth and learning and obtaining new information, right? So if you're comfortable, you're not being challenged, obviously, right? Like a challenge is about discomfort, right? I'm not seeking convenience and comfort. Convenience and comfort means that things are static, things are known. Now, look, there are definitely people who are not comfortable with that idea. They would prefer to be comfortable and make life convenient and blah, blah, blah. But they tend not to be the people who are on stage trying to teach you anything.
Well, okay. So I always pick out quotes all the way through, because as you know, we're going to do highlights and shorts and quotes. And that's going to be one of your quotes, because that is so key. You had two back to back, but if you resort to comfort, you're not going to learn anything. And I think so many important, vital voices never really get out there because it's not comfortable. You are standing
there's
naked
always
on the stage,
fear
right?
of rejection, right? Fear that you won't value what I have to say, fear that my insights aren't that insightful or whatever. But that's because the fear is because you want to be accepted and comfortable. Mm-hmm. So if you're not trying to be accepted and comfortable, then you can say whatever you want to a certain extent. And frankly, that's the other thing that, a lot of the podcasts and public speakers and things like that, they're not trying to be accepted. They're just telling you what they think on the situation, right?
Yes. So you're a tech guy. You're getting yourself out of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. You're going to get the dryness, right? For most of us, like our eyes glaze over, of tech onto stages. So in your wisdom, you take improv classes. You do what you can to hopefully connect with your audience, make it a bit more interesting. What are the first stages that you stepped onto, and how did you break into those?
So professional speaking was first as a representative of my companies, right? So first as my startup, and then as PayPal, and PayPal being invited and also seeking to get on stages to let people know that we existed. This is back in the day when, I joined PayPal. There were 13 PayPals, literally. Like Citibank had C2 Yahoo had PayDirect, eBay had BillPoint. Like there were 13 carbon copies of PayPal. And so we had to get out there and execute and tell people this is a new thing, and we're the ones to do it for you. And so I started doing that a lot. And so if you're an engaging public speaker on whatever the topic is, then the conference people, the producers, and the event organizers want you, right? They're like, yeah, I want you to come and please participate. I started and then I went to Europe. PayPal sent me to Europe to launch PayPal Mobile back in the day. And then I got recruited out of PayPal by RBS, and I was speaking on behalf of RBS, on stages again. And the big transition where I wasn't speaking on behalf of someone was a conference producer who contacted me and said, we're having this event, we'd like you to come speak. And I said, I just left RBS. I'm not there anymore. And they said, so? I was like, oh, you want me to? Me. Right, exactly. And then that sort of took off. Like, I was no longer speaking on behalf of a company. I was speaking on behalf of an industry and on behalf of innovation writ large. Like, what is this fintech wave, and what is this mobile wave, and what is happening? And people wanted my opinion, not the opinion of me as a representative of someone else. I started getting invited also to be on panels. They're like, we want you to be the independent, voice. So everyone else on this panel is working for someone, but now you're appealing because you're not working for RBS, because you have your own thing. Mm-hmm. Now you have a different voice, and I would get, a number of conference producers and event organizers and whatnot said, you're just going to say whatever you think, and I'm like, that's what I've always done. And they're like, yeah, but in this context, it's going to be fun. And I'm just like, okay, fine. So having opinions and being opinionated is I think it's important, right?
Yeah, because then you're just like everybody else, right? Why come and hear your thoughts when you've heard those thoughts over and over, right? And it's funny because you're in not just tech, you're in fintech, right? Finance and tech put together. Like, most of us are like, finances, tech, right? But you really do make it fun. And you really said something that is key to speakers everywhere. And I think we have it flip-flopped. Become a great speaker and you'll get sought after. In my philosophy, and this is exactly what happened to you, you become known as the expert in your field. Get those accomplishments out there. Don't be shy about applying for awards in your space, or putting yourself in situations where you are recognized as the expert in what you do, right? Who is going to try to find the one fintech guy, right, to get on their stage? You have to be findable. So you put yourself out there. You have to be on LinkedIn. You have to be a little bit more outgoing, even if it's not quote unquote comfortable. Yeah. And once you're established as an expert in your space, those bigger engagements will come. I wouldn't say sit there, right? If you really do want to be a speaker, but that is how it started for you, is that you got really good at what you do.
And then I got approached. So then the next phase was I got approached by two different agents, speakers agents, who it was within a month of each other, which was kind of ironic. But one is called London Speakers Bureau, and they got me gigs that I never would have got on my own. I was in Batumi, Georgia, and Beirut, and Moscow, and it was just all over the place in very unusual locations, unusual events, like a lot of multi-language, right? So I'm doing it in English, and I have an earpiece that is in English, but people are asking me questions.
Wow. Talk about not comfortable.
Yeah, like all sorts of, and your timing gets completely screwed up because you make a joke and all the English speakers laugh, and then beat, and then it's been translated for the Russians, and now they're laughing, right? So all of your time, and even your slides, like I used to use a lot of Dilbert cartoons in my thing, and again, I knew the pace. It takes people this long to read the cartoon, 3 panels, 4 panels, and then there'll be a laugh, and then I continue. But then there'd be the simul translation. So English speakers would laugh, beat, and then the rest is like, it gets complicated. When you do simulcast in a different language, it's
That's definitely next level. And
Yeah,
that
that was
that
pretty
just
wild.
says you were comfortable in your skin, you were comfortable with your message. I'm sure there were moments of stress in that whole process, but I love
And then
that you
the
went
other
for
speaker
it.
was Speaker's Corner. Uh,
Speaker's Corner.
and they got me the local, like they basically covered the UK, and London Speaker Bureau covered everywhere else. And it was fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So you've spent a lot of time in fintech or in tech in general.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself? Is there a time in your career? I'm speaking when I say you, on
Mhm.
average, the average person, where you've achieved at a very high level, and now you're really just more interested in kind of passing the torch, get your voice out there. Are you at that place where maybe you're going to slowly let your team run things more on the home front so that you can get your voice on stages more, or you're going to always want to do that juggle of getting
Yeah, I
yourself
mean,
on stages?
I love being on stage, and for me, I love, what I'm really saying is I love teaching. Teaching is fun, giving an audience, seeing the audience go and tilt their head and go, oh, huh, that's interesting. Like I think the teaching experience never really ends. I mean, if you're enjoying it, I thoroughly enjoyed being up on stage, and I continue to, like, that's a fun thing to do. I do think, you shouldn't hog the limelight. I mean, if you have people on your team who need to be up on stage, you should get them up on stage. And by the way, the only way that they're going to figure that out is practice. They have to,
How do you
drop
get
the ball a few
right?
times,
Exactly.
you know.
How do you get
But
good? Practice.
yeah. And then the other thing is, I think it's essential that you're fascinated by your own content, right? I had a guy, so I had the CEO of Aviva Insurance saw me at a public event and approached me at the end and said, I'm having a leadership offsite. Can you come and speak? And I was like, sure. Went into his leadership offsite. Then all the EVPs and SVPs and VPs said, I need you to come. Oh, I lost you. I'm going to continue. All of the rest of the leadership teams, EVPs and SVPs and VPs, I'll let her come back in. Can you hear me?
Okay. I'm here.
So what did you hear? Should I restart that?
Nope, I got it. Actually, I was tracking.
Okay, fine. So they all came and said, I need you to come to present to my team. So I ended up presenting inside of Aviva a couple dozen times, maybe more, probably more, maybe like 30 times, something like that. And there was a guy who was my point person at Aviva. He was on the marketing PR team. And he would be the facilitating guy who said, this team wants you to come in, blah, blah, blah. He would stay and watch my speech. And eventually I was like, dude, you've seen this so many times. Like, you do not have to stay. It's fine. Like, go do your... And he said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, no, I learn something new every time. I'm like, it's the same presentation. What do you mean you're learning something new? He's like, A, you never say the same thing twice. And B, there's so much rich content in there that on this occasion that hits me, and I'm thinking about that as you move on. And on the next occasion, the other thing, he's like, I'll watch it as many times as you give it. And I was like, all right, that's interesting. But the truth was, it's like doing a Broadway show. If you're ever in a show that runs more than a dozen times, the person who's watching it, it's their first time. And they need to feel that energy every single time. And a real performer makes it new every time. And is fascinated by the content. Like, I loved my content. I was like, oh, this story. Wait till I tell you this story. Oh, you won't believe this. And I had stories that I would tell, and it wasn't rote, and it was live and engaging. And the reason he could watch it so many times and still want to is because it was new every time. He felt the performance was new every time.
Well, and in addition to that, right, you go to that play because you kind of know what to expect, but you're into it, right? We go to our favorite song, our band, right, and we don't want them to mess with it a whole lot. We know what we're going to get, but we go to our favorite restaurant, we order our favorite dish. It's usually we have a restaurant for a particular dish. Don't mess with it. I think that speakers who get out there, they think they need 5 or 10 different talks. they dilute themselves. They actually harm themselves by doing that. Have one core talk, which is your core brand. And then you can emphasize something or another, based on based on the audience and what the host wants. But if you go too far off, people are going to go, wait, what? I thought I was going to get this. That's what I came for. This guy would have probably been very disappointed if you would have changed it up too much. He's like, I really thought I was coming for the Roy Vella that I know, right?
Yeah. And by the way, so you hit on something that I think is important. My main deck when I first started doing it was a fintech, digital banking and payments deck. But there was a bunch of fundamental stuff that was more about the industry, more about the rise of mobile phones and the Apple iPhone and the arrival of blah, blah. Like there was all this stuff that it was kind of independent of industry. And then I would deep dive into fintech. When the Aviva CEO came up to me and said, "Do you have a section on insurance?" I said, "Yes." And then I went home and I made a section on insurance. And then so literally it became 80% of my deck was pretty much standard and 20% were deep dives. People came up to me, "Do you have a section on oil and gas?" I do have a section on oil and gas. "Do you have a section on healthcare?" I do have a section on healthcare. Now, some people go, "So you lied." I'm like, well, I mean, what I'm saying is I can easily make a vertical specialization for you. And what would happen? I would go and become a specialist in their segment and find all the use cases and find out what was happening. And then in my style, I would present their industry.
Yes.
When the CEO of Aviva saw the section on insurance, he was like, "Yeah, that's fascinating." And I'm like, "I know, I just learned that yesterday. It's amazing." But this is the thing. Like you should be open to exploration and learning. Like I have seen speakers say, "No, I don't really do that." Like, you don't really do that? Like, what does that mean? Like, yeah, you're smart. You're like, you could do that. Get a little uncomfortable. Go learn. All of human knowledge is at the tip of your finger right now. Like, that is not a hard thing.
Yes.
So do it.
That's so good. I'm so glad that you brought that up, the 80-20, because that will completely revolutionize most of the speakers' careers, right? They realize the core concepts really never change. You can shift it to relate to the audience that you're going to speak with, but you don't need to create a whole new talk for that. As a matter of fact, don't create a whole new talk, because what makes you, Roy, are those principles that you've caught along the way that have catapulted your career and made you the industry expert that you are. So why switch that up? I love that you said that. So when these companies come, at least in the beginning, when they came to you, and I'm sure they probably came with a price, did you ever counter offer? And outside of that host check, so this is a two-part question. So you get the host check. How impactful has speaking been to your company outside of that host check?
Yeah. So one of the huge advantages of having an agent is third-party negotiation, right? So my agent negotiating on behalf of me is immensely valuable for whatever their cut is. Like, they're like, "Yeah, Mr. Vella this, Mr. Vella that. He requires this. He requires that." Like, the having you don't call yourself Mr. Vella. Like, having your agent who's your representative, who's both negotiating on your behalf and setting up the travel and, needs to be business class if it's over, blah, 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 like figuring out all that stuff. Again, status. Yep. Like, then you arrive at the speaking venue and the people are like, "Yes, we spoke to your agent about this. And they requested that." And like, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's all about status. And look, the reality of public speaking is it's a bit like luxury goods. And the reason I say that is sometimes it's good to be reassured. It's my favorite British phrase I'm about to tell you. Reassuringly expensive. So in luxury goods, you need to price high because that reassures the customer of value. Public speaking, like luxury goods, is not cost plus. It's not, here's what it takes to make the handbag and then I add a markup on it. No. It's value. Like you're pricing for value. Value is in the eyes of the beholder. It's the person who buys it. If you come in as a public speaker and you're too cheap, then your message is not valuable.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. And by the way, also you're not in demand. So you got to remember, luxury goods are about scarce resources, right? If everyone had a Cartier bag or whatever the luxury item is, it's no longer valuable, right? It's that there's few around. It's classic economics, supply, demand, blah, blah, blah. You are unique. Literally, it's like you're the only one. You're the one. You're the Hope Diamond. You're the only one of you around. So in principle, you should be goddamn expensive, like really expensive, because you're not only you're the only one around, but your time is limited. So I'm either doing you or I'm doing them. That's it. I can't be in two places, right?
Yeah.
So reassuringly expensive attributes value to your message. Now, can you discount? Sure. Oh, I know that. Is that too expensive for you guys? Well, I hear that. Let me think about it. What do you think you can manage? But you set a high anchor and you can negotiate down if you need to. But often you don't need to, because the other side goes, whoa, yeah, we're getting a high powered speaker. High powered? Yeah, that's translating high cost, right? So I tell folks all the time, like, don't undervalue the value that you're bringing.
Yes. Okay. And there's so much wisdom in what you just said. And it's something that I talk to my speakers about every time. So you need to earn your place of expertise, become very, very good at your craft, because then you really are worth it. Right.
Sure.
So let's say Nike, right? They're going to bring in a speaker for their quarterly executive event.
Sure.
The organizer has a budget. Let's say she's got $15,000, $25,000 for the speaker. Mm-hmm. 3 speakers come in. You might be the best one. You come in at $5,000. Somebody else comes at 10. Somebody comes in at 25. Let's say their budget stops at 15. They're going to go, the $5,000 person's out for exactly what you said. It's just a perception. Even though you might be the better speaker, there must be something wrong. If you're 5,000, you're out, right?
Yep.
15,000, maybe we'll do them, but let me try to get that $25,000 guy to see if he'll do it.
And by the way, if they can get the $25,000 guy for 20, they got a deal.
Yes. And it's not so much a game as, like you said, establishing your value. I always invoice at the rate, right? Let's say,
of course. And then you show the discount for whatever reason. The other thing is you can give a first time discount. Okay, well, I've never engaged with you guys before. For a first time, I'll give you a discount of 10% or 20% as a first time. So for instance, like Aviva, my first presentation, the leadership summit of the CEO, I did give a discount, but it was recognized as a discount. From then on, I was paid full rack for the rest of it, right? Like, so that's the other thing to keep in mind. Am I dealing with a one-off, or am I dealing with an event organizer who does a dozen events a year? Am I dealing with a conference producer? Am I dealing with a corporate who does, a dozen offsites a year in different locations? Or like the repeat play matters. And so, I mean, again, all of this is sort of pricing strategy, right? Like how you position yourself matters. But I do tell people all the time, like, you are a luxury good. You're the only one of you around. It's as simple as that. Like, it doesn't get more luxury.
Yes. And positioning yourself is owning yourself, right? Owning that. Oh my goodness, Roy, I love what you're saying. I have a colleague who, if somebody is past 5 minutes to meet with her, it needs to be rescheduled. She won't wait around for 10 minutes, and she will never reschedule within 2 weeks. At first I'm like, oh, come on, right?
No, I'm booked. Sorry.
Yes. So
100%. I will never. So it's funny you should say that. Again, status. So people say, can you meet tomorrow? I'm like, tomorrow? I'm like, no way. Like a couple weeks out max. Like, I'm sorry, my schedule back to back. And if you don't show, again, It's at least a week, maybe 2. The only reason it'll be a week is that I want to meet with them, but I still can't show too much eagerness, right? Like, again, this is all the same game. It's storytelling and status, right? So if you're available tomorrow, what does that mean? Like, and again, I am not saying that the other person is consciously registering that. I'm not saying that they go, oh, well, he has free time, but they are, because we are a tribal group, and tribes and teams and humans interacting. It's just the truth of the matter, like, and by the way, if I make an exception and someone goes, oh, it's really, you sure? I always say, let me see what I can bump.
So it's never immediate.
It's never immediate. I gotta, my calendar's full, but for you, you're more important maybe than some of my meetings. Let me see what's going on. Let me take a look at it. And now, by the way, it's who's doing who a favor. All of a sudden, I took a meeting that I had and I pushed it off to put them in. That person is like grateful, like, wow, thank you for making the time. Again, I mean, I'm afraid that I'm making it sound like it's some sort of like psychological warfare game, but it's not. It's just how humans interact with one another. Yes. It's just the reality of so this is my real point. My real point is, be conscious of the message you convey. So if you're available at a moment's notice tomorrow, your time is not full. And so you're not so valuable. It's just as simple as that, right? Like, and it's the same with setting a high price. You're a luxury item. The price should be high. Every time you take an action, you're conveying other things other than the piece of other than what you think. There's more to every interaction than what you think.
Yes. Okay. Speaking of time, I'm so appreciative of yours because I know how in demand you are. I have 3 more questions for you. Are you good? Fast ones. Yeah. I'm good. Okay, go ahead. Okay, really quick. First one. Other than those host checks, what has speaking done for your business? Why would you put one of your staff on the stage? Is it just because you think they should be speaking, or is it valuable for your business?
Oh, no, no. Again, status, right? So as soon as you're up on stage, everyone in the audience thinks this has value. It's literally raised above. Think about it. Like there's a visual aspect to this that matters. Like you are above the audience, literally and figuratively. They're like, okay, this has value. Someone else, not me, decided that this person should be raised above the rest of us. Invaluable.
Yes.
Invaluable.
Oh gosh.
But, I mean, hell yeah. Look at the TED conference. You put someone in a red dot and all of a sudden their status goes.
Yeah. They've spoken for what, 15, 18 minutes? Like at a
university
where maybe there's 50 people in the audience.
Yeah. But and that's also the value of TEDx, right? Like getting that brand out there is important. It's invaluable to any company. It gets the word out, and again, it increases your status.
Positioning. Yes. Love it. Okay, Roy, I know by this time there are people in our audience who definitely want to get a hold of you. I know you have a huge following on LinkedIn. What are some of the best ways to find you? And do you want to be reached?
Sure, of course I want to be. I mean, we didn't even talk about my current business in Next Collabs and AI.
Let's do it.
I mean, AI is exploding, obviously. So yeah, I'm easy. I'm blessed with a fairly unique name. Roy Vella at anything gets to me. Roy Vella at the end of LinkedIn is me. Roy Vella at Gmail will get to me. You name it. Like you search Roy Vella, there's a graphic designer in Florida who has my name, but he doesn't have a lot of the
very outside of your space. So Vella, Vella, very easy.
Vella, all one word, anywhere, pretty much finds me. Next collabs, very quickly. We are solving the 2023 problem, right? Everyone got the message at the end of 2023 that the person with AI is going to outpace the person without AI.
Should we be afraid of AI?
No, I don't think so. I think so. It's not going to take jobs. It's going to take tasks. we talk about two prongs. There's augmentation at the top. It makes you more prolific, productive, efficient, effective, and automation at the bottom. We already have a word for it. We call it busy work. It's called busy work because we know it doesn't require the frontal lobe. But before the AI moment, we needed a human to do it still. Now, I mean, what we say is it's a very humanizing moment because I'm going to give the machine work to the machine and the human work to the human. The creative endeavor, I think it's an accelerant. I think it's going to augment us. It's going to make life easier and better. Are there tedious jobs that are going to go away? Yeah, if there's any rote, repetitive, tedious, dirty, dangerous job, will probably go to the machine. But no, I think it's going to, well, again, as it says on LinkedIn, I'm a techno optimist, right? I think that there's a huge opportunity. It's a change though. And any change is uncomfortable, but I think it's going to be massively positive. I think the tyranny of the blank page is over. The staring at a blank screen or at a blank notebook, you're going to get what AI will enable is to get the ball rolling. I tell my teenagers, it gets the ball rolling. If you submit what comes out, you're going to get a C or a D. But we're all good editors and curators, and you're going to say, oh, I like this, I don't like this, or I was thinking that, and you're going to make it your own.
You always need the human, right? You always need the human. We got an app thinking we were going to be so on it. Right. Sometimes my team needs me to just have a little video clip, and I'm slow to get it to them because I'm, like you said, back to back to back. So I got the app, right? I did all this stuff. They could just type in the words. The app does me. It does me good, but you don't get me, not the
100%.
Yes, techno optimist. Love that.
Intelligence. There's a great book by a Wharton Business School professor called Ethan Mollick. Very worth following him on LinkedIn. But his book is called Co-Intelligence: Living and Working with AI. And the reason I recommend it is it's practical, tactical. He's like, here's what we've got. Here's how it works. Here's how you can add value to your life using it. So next collabs, we're not creating AI. There's a Cambrian explosion of AI. There's plenty of AI around. We help people adopt a new thought partner that happens to not have a body.
Ooh, okay. Let me say that. We adopt a new thought partner that happens to not have a body.
Right. So there's a new thought partner in the equation who can add a lot of value and get a lot of legwork done for you, but doesn't, so a collab is actually a thing. It's a third space where humans locally, humans remotely, and AI are all collaborating, but the lab part is more important. It's a place of experimentation and iteration and practice, right? You need to practice. It's a very counterintuitive tool. It is not like Microsoft Office or any prior technological tool. And so I tell people, you can sit in the stands, but if I'm really going to teach you this, you need to come out onto the field, right? Like that's what we do is we help with behavioral change because a lot of the way you interact with AI is not intuitive. It's about context and it's about iteration and practice.
So is this a consulting service that you offer? Is it a workshop, a class?
It's consulting, but it's more coaching than consulting to a certain extent. Like I'm not going to leave you with a strategy deck, right? Like I am going to leave you, I'm going to change your life. Like you're going to, it's a fundamental shift in how you work in the knowledge economy. We tell folks, if you're using a keyboard and a screen and you're not using AI, you're already falling behind. And it's a shift. And again, change, shift, transformation. These are all words of discomfort, but that's how you learn. And that's how you grow. And, our best client increases revenue 50% and decides, let's just go to a 4-day work week because we can,
and instead of sticking your head in the sand just because you're not really welcoming the concept of AI, you're going to lose some footing. You're going to lose some ground. So we'll let you be comfortable with that for us. Right?
We landed on the wrong A and on the wrong I. Artificial seems fake, not real, insubstantial. And intelligence implies thoughtfulness and correctness. It's really augmented imagination. Where we are at the moment is that it is an imaginative, creative tool. If anyone is working with words and images, they should be augmenting their imagination through an AI thought partner. We will have artificial intelligence, right? A full RAG, which validates the statements, that makes sure that they're true, is coming. Perplexity is a lot like that. Gemini is already getting there. ChatGPT starting to cite sources when they state facts. But for the most part, it's augmented imagination. That's what it does.
Okay, that's a whole conversation. At some point, I'd love to have you back just to talk about that, right? Because it's going to
I could talk about AI forever.
every one of our lives. So in closing, what would you say to an emerging speaker now in this world of augmented imagination? How are they going to stand out? They are an expert in their field. They want to get their voices out there. The competition is pretty fierce. The stages are limited, right? What is your one challenge to those who really want to take their voice and get it out there?
Yeah. I mean, discomfort, right? I think they need to be pushing their own knowledge and their own. Well, okay, strike that. Excitement. They need to be excited about the content that they're sharing, right? Like if you're not excited and fascinated by your content, the audience will not be. Full stop. Second, the discomfort and the learning has to be perpetual. Like if you have a deck that doesn't change every time you get off stage. So my deck was constantly evolving. Every time I got off stage, I had a new idea. Like, oh, I should do that instead of this. And like, it should be constant. It should be a living, evolving beast. It is not if it's static at all, you're not going to last. Like it should be constant, and which is the other reason that person kept coming to my presentations, because it was constantly evolving. And then C, I would say, think in terms of story. What is the story you're telling? What's when they leave the room? Let me tell you this: if they leave the room and you want them to remember a statistic, you don't want to be a public speaker. You want them to leave the room feeling something new and different, such that they want to learn more. Like there's no scenario where they leave the room like, oh, now I know everything about that. That's not your job. Your job is to ignite and inspire exploration, where the person goes, I want to learn. I want to talk to that guy. I want to learn more about what he knows. I want to go research. They should be doing searches and wanting. It's about inspiration and eagerness and igniting that fire. That's your job. And that's about telling a story. At the end of the story, they go, whoo, I need to learn more about that. I mean, that's the secret sauce of all this, right? The reason you get invited back is because people are like, man, I know that what I just saw is the tip of the iceberg. That's the feeling they should get, that there's a whole iceberg under there that I don't know anything about, and I need to learn more.
Which gets them back, right? A talk is really just the first step in a journey. Hopefully, if you've done it right, they don't walk away thinking they got everything. I never need to see Roy Vella again.
Exactly.
There's so much depth.
Totally.
Roy, you have been a wealth. I am so appreciative. A wealth. Like I want to go back and watch this episode and take more notes, aside from the 10 I already took, 10 pages of notes I took.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom on Speak Pact and for joining into this pact to make the impact where only we can, right? There's no other Roy Vella. There's no other Antoniette Roze. There's no other you who's listening right now. Nobody can step into those shoes but you. So thank you for joining in on this journey today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Have a fabulous week. And to all of you listeners, ciao, ciao for now.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Pact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the Speak Pact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply #SpeakPact.